All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It has been a while, and we're so glad to have you here. Welcome to our next round of CareAcademy webinars meant to support agencies and direct care workers during this whole new normal of COVID-19. We're retitling and we thought these webinars and made them much more specific to now navigate what we can presume is the new normal of COVID-19 and being a home care agency and having frontline workers working directly with clients in the midst of this time. So we're really excited to talk with you today around one of the issues that you all identified. If you are new to our webinars, welcome also. My name is Helen Adioson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of CareAcademy, and today we'll be speaking with Kristen Shantz, Director of Marketing at Hireology, who will be talking more about one of the greatest issues, I think, coming into this next new normal of hiring and recruiting in the midst of COVID and the COVID landscape. But before we begin, and as you all are settling in, welcome. Let's go on to that next slide. If you haven't used Zoom webinars, just a way to get your get everything together here. So on the very bottom, you'll see the control panel. There's the chat, the raised hands, and the Q&A feature. If you have any questions for Kristen as she's progressing through the slides and really giving the presentation, make sure you post them in the bottom. We'll try to get to as many of your questions as possible at the very end of the presentation, but at any point, if you have any questions or any thoughts, we'll make sure we read those out at the very end of the presentation. So make sure you click that Q&A. And if we have to elaborate on any one particular point, like we've done in the past with these webinars, we'll make sure that we take you off of mute. So be prepared. Our amazing team here at CareAcademy will take you off of mute so you can further elaborate on your questions or your comments regarding our topic today. And next one, perfect. And just so everyone is familiar with who is CareAcademy and what we do, so CareAcademy is the #1 provider of online training for direct care workers. We are specifically designed for mobile and mobile first and offer portable records. So direct care workers at any point can transmit their records of their training between providers, saving you a lot of time and money. We have 160 hours of training meant for direct care workers, including our robust partnership with Keep It Snow and dementia content, an online dashboard meant for you and your staff to see where direct care workers are at any point in their training. And last but not least, we believe these are very, very important points. Customer support really meant for both your back office staff as well as your direct care workers in English as well as in Spanish. And of course, API integration, so you have a seamless experience with online training. So I'm really excited for Kristen's topic today. You'll remember a couple weeks back, for those of you who were on our webinar, we took a poll, and we really believe in just finding out and being in the pulse of what is happening within home care and how can we best be a resource to you in very new and strange and unfamiliar time, and make sure that we answer as many of your questions and help you wayfind in the midst of what is a very turbulent time. So we're going to talk today about the COVID-19 effect on home care, the best practices for hiring during an uncertain time. And this is a really great Hireology workshop, and Hireology is a valued partner of CareAcademy. And so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead also and we want to always continue the dialogue with you all and make sure that we're bringing you the very best content to be most helpful for you in this time. We have a poll that we'd like to launch as well. So in that poll, we want you to answer the question, what COVID-19 related topics would you like to learn more about in the upcoming webinars? And what is your agency's biggest concern right now? Every time we do one of these webinars, we want to make sure that the very next webinars are reacting to some of the challenges that you're seeing on the ground. So what COVID-19 related topics would you like to learn more about in upcoming webinars? And two, what is your agency's biggest concern right now? So if you can just answer those questions for us, that's just a way for you to talk back to us and make sure that we're getting you the very best of resources. So while you're answering that, I am going to waste no time in transitioning it to our esteemed guest today from Hireology. Kristen, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you, Helen. And that's a very nice introduction. I don't know if I've ever been called esteemed before, but I appreciate it. Very excited to be with you all. My name is Kristen Shantz, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Hireology. Hireology is a leading applicant tracking software based out of Chicago. And we help over 7,000 businesses attract, hire, and onboard different individuals to help them build their best team. We think people's first strategy is the best way to do this. My role at Hireology has really been about leading our efforts around content, thought leadership, and best practices to help those businesses. I've been here almost 3 years now, and have spent the majority of my career really thinking about how can you better help businesses be successful. So without further ado, we'll talk a little bit about how you can hire in this climate today. Next slide, please. Yeah, so Hireology has coined the term the applicant economy, and it's gone through a lot of shifts in the last month, if not a couple weeks. You can go to the next slide, sorry, Ashwin. And basically, this is what unemployment has looked like over the last 30 years. I think a lot of you have experienced the pains of this over the last 10 years. Looking back to 2008, our last recession, we were at about over 10% in unemployment. And now we're, about a month ago, we were sitting at about 3.5%. What that essentially meant was that every single person who was working or could work was working. And we're having a really hard time finding talent regardless of industry. And I'm sure all of you on the call felt it even more than others, that we couldn't experience this going forward. So it looks like we might be having some sound issues. Everyone good here? Okay, I'll keep going. So moving on to the next one for, fast forward to today, we had, 3.5% unemployment about a month ago, and then here's where we are today. As of yesterday, we had 14.5% unemployment in the United States. In a matter of 5 weeks, we've jumped 11 points in unemployment. The latest figures is that over 22 million people are weekly filing for unemployment. And so now what we're seeing is that basically the tables have turned on employers where, hey, we were struggling to find talent, and now there's so much talent in the market, we would think that we'd start to see a higher volume of applicants. And right now we're kind of all in this wait and see scenario. And so what this means is, hey, what do I do? How do I tackle this climate? There's so many people in the market. I'm still struggling to find people. And so what we want to focus today on is how you can best look at this. You can go to the next slide, please. So some of you are facing, these challenges in different ways. Some of you may have halted your business or not hired or concerned about safety, while others are looking to build your roster as fast as possible to make sure that you're hiring people to meet the demands. And so I think what we want to talk about, knowing that we've seen this complete shift from low levels of unemployment to high levels of unemployment, how can we best all tackle this from home and really build that roster so that you guys can be successful in a post-COVID world? So we'll go through this scenario a little bit. You can go to the next slide. So what we're going to talk about is Hireology's best practices for hiring during these times. We look at this, we've been in business about 10 years now. So we've kind of started at the height of the last recession and have kind of seen it fall here. And we work with 7,000 different businesses, so have different ways that you can really tackle this from your home and in a virtual way. So you can go to the next one. So what we're going to focus on is it's easier said than done to say, hey, I'm going to fix my recruitment processes. I'm going to think differently about how I hire, and we're going to break it down into 6 easy steps for you. It's more than just, hey, what job boards do I put my jobs on? It's how do you attract top applicants? I think all of you know that the key to success is not just having a body, but having someone who's willing and able to work for you in the right way. How do you write effective job descriptions so you attract those top applicants? While you're in the process of hiring, especially in this virtual or work from home or stay at home in place, depending on what state you're in, how do you keep candidates engaged in this process? How do you make sure that they're able to work for you? I think especially in your industry and kind of working in healthcare, you need to make sure that everyone has the right qualifications and are a good fit for the culture of your business. And then once they're hired or put on your roster, how do you make sure that you get them set up for success? How do you ensure that they're onboarded the right way and ready to be put on the schedule? And then finally, once they're started, I think a lot of us, as I sit here a couple blocks from Wrigley Field, how do you stay connected to your employees and make sure that everyone is really engaged so that you don't lose them or that you keep them throughout this crisis? And so we'll break down best practices with each of these things. But look, really excited to talk about how we can make this easier for you to stay connected during uncertain times. So we'll go to the next one. So attracting top applicants. As a marketer, this is something I'm super passionate about. I think a lot of us don't realize that recruiting is essentially a marketing practice. I think for so long we thought, hey, let's put this in the HR bucket. This is their issue to solve. And it's really about how do you put your best foot forward and recruit via marketing tactics. And I think in the last couple years with unemployment being so low, we were having to think differently about those recruitment marketing tactics. Now, given the climate that we're in, it's really the opportunity to double down on that and reach out to that top talent and make sure that you're getting everyone who's kind of entered the workforce or the job search again so that you can fill your roster accordingly. So we can go to the next one. So let's talk about the shift in applicant volume. I may sound like a broken record here, but I think it's really important as you think about how you're gonna hire and how you're going to build your roster and make sure that you're staffing appropriately to serve your clients or your patients, is really talk about the shift in applicant volume. It will probably be case studies in business schools for years to come about the shift in this economy and the applicant volume. I know in my life, I never thought I'd be saying the words global pandemic in the workplace as much as I have. And so that shift in applicant volume is really interesting. So February, as a country, we were basically at full employment. With 3.5% unemployment, that essentially means everyone is working. April, that is continuing. We're record high. We're basically back to where we were in the 1960s. The last time we saw unemployment at 3.5% was in the 1960s. And then all of a sudden we come to this week and we're at 14.5%. And the most impacted industries, as I'm sure you guys have seen, is hospitality, retail. A lot of people are being furloughed, laid off, and kind of sitting there and joining the unemployment line. Now, what we want to talk about is how do you attract those individuals, those people who don't know when they're going to get a job again, over to the healthcare things. I think most agencies we've talked to at Hireology or support really struggle to get people interested in their positions. And now there is a service-minded group of people who really want to help people back on the job search that you can bring over. And so how do we really take that and build your employment brand so that you become a choice or a destination for these people while they collect unemployment or think about their next step? Next slide. So what's interesting, or a lot of people are like, oh, my employment brand is probably not as important as my consumer brand. And a study came out 2 years ago that kind of showed this, that nearly 70% of job seekers would reject an offer from a company with a bad employer brand. I think for so long, a lot of businesses thought it was, hey, if I pay them enough, they'll ignore that. If I change the value proposition of the job, they'll ignore it. But really that bad employer brand, or making sure it's someone that they want to work for, is really an indicating factor of who's going to apply for your job and who's going to accept that offer and want to go through the onboarding process. And so really what we're going to talk about here is how can you shape up that employer brand and make sure that it's known in your market. Go to the next slide. So it really starts down with, what do job seekers need? Like every good marketer, you think about what is the consumer or the person purchasing my product or even choosing my agency to work with, what's in it for me? And so job seekers should be treated no differently. Do you have an employment brand that tells them, hey, what's in it for me? Do I know what my job is every day? Do I know what my defined career path is going to look like? Hey, if I stay with this company for 10 years, here's how it can get me to the future. Do I put forth, hey, I have employees who've been with me for more than 2 years. How do I talk about their experience and make sure that they're happy? I think word of mouth studies by a lot of marketing agencies have been done. And I think there's the birth of social media is because people want to hear from other people in like-minded situations. Tell them what it's like to work there. And so really let your employees tell your story and speak for you about what it's like to work for you as an employer. And then how do you talk about benefits and perks? I think a lot of people think that benefits and perks, especially in this, what was the tech boom, has to do with kind of the LaCroix you offer or things like that. I think for some of it is you choose your own hours, or you get to work with people differently, or you get to help, take care of patients, or you get to make sure that you're being a companion to someone. How do you make sure you highlight those benefits and perks that are going to attract the right person to your position? And then finally, it seems pretty easy, but you'd be surprised how many businesses that Hireology comes across and ends up working with don't list their current openings until they really start thinking differently about how they attract applicants. How do you make sure that those are out there on your career site, on your different web pages, that people know, hey, we're looking for people, or we're looking to build our roster to staff up for our patients, and you need to make sure that that's front and center. Go to the next one. So I'm going to reiterate this. I think a lot of companies that we've talked to, or even, think about it, is if you're not hiring right now, hey, I don't need to pay attention to this. I don't need to think about my employment brand. I don't need to put my best foot forward. I would challenge everyone to really think about building and maintaining that brand right now. With 22 million filing for unemployment, is a great opportunity to start to build your pipeline of talent or your roster, so that when you do have demand for patient, you are ready to go back and market, you are ready to kind of reopen your business in a more significant way. You're ready to do that. And then in this kind of, after we get through, hopefully, this COVID period here quickly, your reputation is kind of really strengthened and sound, and you can start to really become a top-notch recruiting engine as you grow your business. Go to the next one. So we'll stop here for a poll real quick. Let's pull up the question. So the question is going to be, a career site's really important to your employment brand. And so I think a lot of people don't realize you need to keep it relevant or constant to make sure everyone's updated. So my question to all of you is, how many of you have updated your career site with specific COVID-19 messaging? So, thinking back to what job seekers, are you talking about how you're keeping them safe? Are you talking about, what's going on for hiring? Thinking about that differently, and we want to put that kind of poll in market, really helps us understand kind of where we all are today and how we manage, call attention to the fact that we're in a new normal in a different situation. Give it a second. Okie dokie. So I would highly recommend that you all kind of look at that today, and we'll move on to the next section and talk about how we can then think about our job descriptions. And so, hey, I build my employment brand, I update my career site, I really think about who I am as an employer and how I put my employee testimonials first. And then it's, if you think about if you have your brand, think about your job descriptions as ads. How am I making sure I'm putting an ad forward that's really going to get someone to want to apply to my job? So, hey, they're interested in me as an employer. How do I make sure that they choose that job and that job sounds interesting so that basically they apply or purchase? So go to the next one. I think it's interesting right now. I look at this, one would think, hey, we're in this weird crisis and we're all home and, there should be a lot of time to be bored. I don't think I've ever been as busy as I am right now from a work point of view. And I think it's because we all have time to kind of really dig into projects that we may not have done. And so my recommendation would be to audit your existing job descriptions. Given this new world, are you talking about how you keep your employees safe? Are you talking about the kind of benefits that we listed before for employment brand in your job descriptions? How are you auditing and changing those to match the time, thinking about also that you have hospitality and retail workers who may not have looked at healthcare positions previously that may be interested or could be thinking about it and want to get those certifications to bring them over to that side. And then, use those job descriptions to highlight your employment brand again. Do you talk about your history? How long have you been serving your markets? What's your culture like? And what is it like to work for you? How do you foster community and how do you build that? Every opportunity that you have to kind of tell that story is that much better. And I think, I keep talking about being a marketer, but repetition is how you get someone to really retain information and understand it. And so the more you can highlight your history, your culture, your community, who you are as an employer, the better off you are. And then again, I talked a little bit about the job descriptions attracting retail and hospitality candidates. I think a lot of people are sitting on that unemployment or kind of collecting unemployment today and really thinking about their next step. How do you use your job descriptions to tell that story to make them think differently or think about choosing this as a career path, especially because I don't think demand will change in our industry. It's actually only going to increase and demand will only be there. And so we need to make sure that we're starting to foster those, foster that interest while people are a captive audience. And then finally, highlight preferred competencies, not specific required experience. There's technical experience and hard skills that we all need to have that are important to the jobs themselves. And there's ways to get at that during the hiring process through skills testing and pre-screen surveys and things like that. But it's also important to talk about competencies. Are they a people person? Can they relate to other humans? How do you talk about those soft skills so that people kind of self-identify and self-choose from there? I think for so long we thought it was a quantity game versus a quality game. And even in this market, it's really important that you're making people both choose you as you choose them. And so how do you highlight those competencies that they self-identify with so that they want to work for you and kind of be a best representative of your company? Move to the next one. Great. So we've done all of our work on the recruitment marketing side. We've put our employment brand forward. We've rewritten our job descriptions. We're making sure that they're showing up not only on our platforms, but where job seekers are. So on different job boards, etc. They've applied to you. They've chosen to work for you. How do you keep them engaged? I think it's really, really hard right now. A lot of us are so used to, hey, I'm going to have a candidate come in. I'm going to get to meet them face to face. I'm going to get to see get a good feel for them. Helen and I were actually talking before this about how hard it is to run interviews in this virtual world and what that looks like. And so it's really now a good time to double down on what technology do you have to help you keep candidates engaged. There's going to be lots of options for them. And so they've chosen you. How do you get them to keep choosing you over and over? So let's go to the next one. So interesting stat in 2019, and I don't think this would change in this market, is 1 in 10 healthcare applicants were lost in 2019 because they were never reviewed. So we were in this shortage of talent. We were having a hard time filling the demand of what we needed for talent and people, yet we weren't getting back to them. The average person in 2019 would find a new job in 2 weeks. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's where we were as an employment market. They would find, would apply to a job and be hired within 2 weeks. And we were waiting on 1 in 10 applicants 2 weeks to even get back to them or review their resume. And so that isn't a recruitment marketing problem. That isn't a supply problem. That is truly a process issue. We're not paying attention or looking at that. And once you kind of lose good favor or not get back to someone, that can have impacts on kind of your brand in the future and your ability to recruit that person down the line. And so what we really want to talk about here is getting candidates engaged is, hey, what parts of the process or what am I doing that I could improve the experience for potential candidates to drive this forward? So we'll go to the next one. So it really gets down to what is the ideal candidate experience? There's all these things we can do, but put yourself in the applicant's position. What are they doing quickly? So we lost 1 in 10 previously to not getting back to them. Hey, I am struggling to find people and I get these resumes. What is my turn time? How are I making sure that you review them quickly? How do you get back to them fast? Do you have those rules or do you have even the measures or KPIs in place to make sure that everyone who is opening positions on your team is reviewing the applicants or the resumes that come in. I think the volume game is really hard. So, hey, we may get a lot of volume of applicants in this market. How are you using pre-screen surveys? A lot of ATSs out there, including Hireology, use pre-screen surveys to help you kind of weed some people out. It doesn't always have to be a human one-to-one touch to help you whittle down to better candidates. So, hey, do you have a tool in place that their resume comes in, they're automatically communicated with and sent a pre-screen survey that helps you make sure that they're a good fit for you? And I think that's a great way. I think candidates would rather get that automated response and be able to be sure that they're getting selected out than sit there and wait for someone to get back to them. A lot of us have heard the term ghosted. You don't want to be ghosted by employers, especially in this market and especially during these uncertain times. You want someone to get back to you, whether it's through a survey or just reviewing the resume itself. And then finally, connecting with candidates where they are. I think too often we think, hey, it's easier for me to email and it's easier for me to make a phone call and leave a voicemail. It's not about what's easy for you. It's about making sure that that applicant and that candidate chooses to want to work for you and that you start their experience with you as an employer off on the right foot. How many of us, I looked at my screen time over the weekend and it's embarrassing how much I'm using my phone during all of this. I've started to have to implement, turn off my phone time at night, but everyone is on their phone. How are you able to text your candidates? Can you reach them that way? A lot of us may be having to have kids at home doing school on our computer and we're not in front of it. Can you use your phone to text? Can you text them, engage with them and make them feel like they're really, really wanted? And there's lots of tools out there that help you automate that or make that easier to reach candidates so that you don't feel like you're having to do it one-off. And so there's different things you can do to create that really ideal candidate experience that doesn't actually add time for your team. It may save it and then ultimately save some money down the line. Go to the next slide. Talking a little bit more about texting, I think data's proof in the pudding here. How your demand is met by how fast you can do this. And texting, we have found, can speed up the hiring process by 8 days. So businesses that use Hireology and use texting as a way to communicate with candidates versus trying to just email or call them have seen their time to hire improve by 8 days. So 8 days or almost a week and a half where you have roles filled and you're not spending money on job boards or having to go through candidates and things like that, you can really save some time and money and efficiencies for your team. And then text reminders decrease interview no-shows by 20%. I'm sure a lot of us in the, who are hiring managers or have gone through this before, I've had people, and it blows my mind that people would do this, but people not show up for an interview. 1 in 5, we are able to decrease that no-show rate by 1 in 5 or 20%. And so that's really important. And that's where kind of meeting the candidate where they are versus really focusing on ourselves can really improve your ability to hire the right team. Go to the next one. So we've done our job to attract the right applicants, to write the job descriptions in the right way that makes them want to apply. They've applied and we've done the right things to meet them where they are and communicate with them. Now it's really the important part, I'm sure a lot of you want to talk about, is how do you verify that they're good, they're the right person for your role, that they can take care of your patients and help your business move forward. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can verify candidate qualifications in this space. So we need to stay focused on top talent. I think right now, especially when we're all desperate or in need of this, it's really easy to say, hey, this person has a pulse or they're willing to work for us, let's hire them. And so how do we make sure that there's systems in place, especially as we're remote hiring or virtual hiring, that can help you ensure that you're hiring the best team for your business? And so skills tests, there's so many things out there and there's things you can order through Hireology's platform that help you identify skills. Do they have the right skills in place? Can they do what they need to? Do you run impactful interviews? I think more than ever before, because you're not in person with your other hiring managers, your other employees who are interviewing people for you, do you have a consistent set of interview questions? Have you identified what you want everyone to narrow in on with these different employees? Running impactful interviews, whether it's video, which I think a lot of us are doing now, or in person, can really help you identify if it's the right person for your position. References. So often you'd be surprised, references go out and they don't get responded to. How do you automate that process? Let the applicant provide that to you at the beginning of the hiring process so that the minute that the interview is done, you can send those references out. And what we found is if you can make it look like it's coming from the applicant and saying, hey, this is a reference for my position, you'll do better from that perspective. And then now, background checks. I think for so long it was, hey, I'm going to pay someone to go to the court and run this background check. Can you do it digitally? Do you have a tool that can help you order this up and make sure that you're doing those digital background checks? So, hey, we've done soft skills, we've tested on hard skills, and then are we legally compliant and can this person work from us from a background checks? And then how do you make sure that you're prioritizing digital document collection? Things like CPR certification. How do you make sure that they are able to do the skills and hard skills and certified to do that for your different patients and clients out there? Go to the next one. So we have attracted them, we've written the right job description, we've kept them engaged, we have verified that they are a good fit for our culture, that they have all the hard skills, that they are certified, and that they are legally able and compliant to work for us. Now it's, we've put them on our roster, we're getting them ready to go. How do you make sure that they're onboarded the right way so that day one, when they're going in to help someone, they're set up for success? And now I think it's a really awesome time to look at how we do this with digital tools more than ever before, because, sometimes the situation warrants necessity, and that's where we are today for onboarding. So we'll go to the next one here. So onboarding best practices. A lot of us know what we need to do. So, hey, we need to give them the tools to succeed. We need to make them feel really welcome. We need to make them feel the love. We need to make sure that they understand it. Now it's really, how do I do that online when I can't be with that person? So what tools do they have to succeed? Do they have the education through different LMS platforms like a CareAcademy that can help them understand what they need to be doing? Can they simplify HR tasks? Hey, am I making them have to fill out all of this paperwork in person, or can I digitize a lot of that? How can they submit that before they even get hired? How do we add a lot of that and simplify that so that the minute that you send that hire paperwork, they're ready to go? And that's where that shift to digital onboarding can be really important. We have found that someone who has a really good onboarding experience, 2/3 of them will stay for longer than 2 years if they have a good onboarding experience. And so shifting to digital, especially within this world, will help you provide that great experience. Streamlining employee scheduling. I mean, I don't envy the position a lot of you are in, about how do you manage schedules and make sure people need to go where they need to be. Can you make sure that your new hire data, your applicant data, goes to payroll and the scheduling system as quickly as possible so that there's no lag time there, and that the minute that they're hired, they know where they need to be as soon as possible. And then finally, we talk about this a lot at Hireology, and it's really, really important in this day and age. How do you make day one great? Day one of someone's experience at a new business can make or break their experience overall. And so do they go home at night, or do they get off their computer at night and look at their spouse or their family and say, hey, I'm so excited that I get to work for this company. I can't believe I made this decision. This is so awesome. Or do they do the same thing and look at their family, oh my God, I can't believe what I did. I can't believe I work for this company. And so those two, the tone difference there is really about how do you make day one great? And I think if you give them the tools to succeed, if you simplify a lot of the tasks, if they feel supported through digital onboarding, if they feel like everything's streamlined and that they are communicated with their employees, and you make that day one great, you can have an employee that's really dedicated to your growth and success overall. We'll go to the next one. So finally, we've got everyone on the roster, we've got everyone scheduled, we're putting them in the places that they need to be, and they're really meeting patient and client demand. How do we stay connected now? A lot of you are probably going through this. Hireology went through this adjustment. How do you stay connected to your employees in this post-COVID world? It's a new normal that I think a lot of us are struggling to figure out what it looks like. And so we'll talk a little bit about some best practices, and why this is so important is your employees, going back, tying it back to how you attract top applicants. Your employees are your best advocates for bringing new talent in. So as you look to grow your business or hire new people, your current employees are the best way for you to do that. And so it's really important that you stay connected once they're hired. So go to the next one. So it's kind of 3 simple things here about staying connected. And I know 3 bullets seem really simple, but these are really, really hard things to do. You know, the rule of 3s in marketing, but I think maintaining transparency for your business is a lot easier said than done. So how are you being really, really open with your employees about, hey, here's what I know and here's what I don't know. Here's what I know about the state of Illinois. Governor Pritzker announced what our phases are for stay at home in place. Here's how that impacts us, and here's what we still don't know. And how do you make sure that your team knows that you're on top of it, but that there are unknowns that you're still working through? I think it's good to be honest, and it's good to be transparent in these times. Driving empathy. Our partner, Edelman here in Chicago, has been doing lots of studies about this right now, and they've named the title CEO as the new Chief Empathy Officer in this post-COVID world. And empathy is more than just, hey, I hear you. It's really, how do you listen to your employees and give them what they need? If someone is afraid for their safety, how do you find ways to reassure them that, hey, we're going to make sure you have the tools and the practices and the policies in place to make you feel safe? If someone's really struggling with, hey, I have to balance kids at home and work, how do you really empathize with them and talk about, here's how I can help you and here's what we can't do, and really listen to them? And so it starts at the top, and I think more than ever before in this post-COVID world and this new normal as we talk about it, leading with empathy, both for your employees as well as your clients, is all that much more critical. And I think you'd be surprised to find that if you lead with that for your employees, it naturally spills over from them to clients and things of that nature. And then finally, preparing for the new normal. We use, I think that this and uncertainty and a couple other words are the buzzwords of the COVID pandemic, but the new normal is still something that we don't know. But it's important for employees to know that we're all preparing for it. Hey, we hear you. You want to know when this is all going to be over. You want to know when we can get back to work. You want to know what the future looks like, and say, hey, here are the things that we're considering, and here's what we're planning for. Will really, really help people be ready to be back to normal in the right way, and what that new normal looks like. And I think if you paired this maintenance of transparency, leading with empathy, and then talking about how to prepare for the new normal, you'll really be able to stay connected with your team. There's, I could wax poetic about the different technologies you can use, Zoom, GoToMeeting, Slack messages, texting your employees. There's lots of ways to do this, but it's really about these 3 practices. Is whatever the communication style it is, or communication method, it's really about transparency, empathy, and preparedness. Is how you stay connected to your team. And that team will be the team that helps you then drive your recruiting and drive the hiring of building a new roster to help you prepare for the future. And so with that, we'll have one more poll here. So what we want to talk a little bit about is, we get everyone hired, we're ready to go. Do you have automated scheduling in place to help employees shift to this new normal? Shifts quickly and efficiently. I'll let people take a second to answer it here. Great. So I think, the reason why we bring this up is I think scheduling is an as important part as onboarding as is staying connected with your employees. We just want to make sure people are looking at that today. So just to reiterate what we talked a little bit about here is it's really about connecting, and it's connecting through the entire employee life cycle. So from when someone is even just thinking, hey, I either want to change a job or I'm in the market for a job, how do you attract those top applicants? How do you write job description or job ads essentially to reach those top applicants? Once they've applied, how do you keep them engaged so that you're continuing to keep that recruitment engine going? How do you verify that those candidates that have chosen to work for you or want to work for you are qualified to do so? Are they compliant? Do they have the hard skills? Do they have the right competencies? Once they're hired, are they set up for success? Do they have all the information that they need? Are you collecting all the information in this easy and streamlined way that makes them feel excited? And are they staying connected to, and then finally, are you staying connected to them once they're hired, especially in this world where, who knows what the future looks like? How do you stay connected to them? How do you drive that forward through empathy and through different things? And I think with that, I am done with the kind of set part of this, and we'll open this to questions for either Helen and or myself.
Absolutely, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen. I saw questions come in fast and furious. A lot of while we're waiting for additional questions or anyone else to put in that Q&A box any additional questions, I would love to share the poll results. Ashwin, do we have the poll results of the polls that Kristen posed? See if we can pull those up. But while we're pulling the responses up, you said a couple of things, and there are a lot of nuggets that resonated with me, and I think any business owner in this time. One, the very fact that I think that every single leader of any organization or company is the chief empathy officer right now. It is absolutely first and foremost in terms of the folks that you have currently on your staff right now, or the folks that you have, that you're looking to hire, that you are attentive to the needs of employees or future employees. So I love that that chief empathy officer note. And I think also processes. More often than not, it's not just about having more people in your pipeline, but this is a really great time. I was listening to a great radio program a couple days ago. This is a time, sort of in the calm before the storm or looking to recruit, to really refresh on your processes. I really love that piece, Kristen. Are there any strong takeaways or things you would want to reiterate just from the presentation? Those are the two things that resonated with me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head on the processy front. I think the biggest thing for me right now is just, even if you are halting hiring or rethinking it, now is the time to really think about that whole part of your business and really think about that. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Really thinking about your processes and how you engage with candidates throughout the entire life cycle is really important.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so here are the results to some of the polls. In terms of what COVID-19 related topics would you like to learn more about in the upcoming webinars? How to retain caregivers during the pandemic. We're already starting to see some questions come through around that. And then a couple close favorites, retaining clients during the pandemic, keeping caregivers and clients safe. Kristen alluded to it, and this is something, I mean, even internally within CareAcademy, we're thinking about this too, but everyone is now in the mindset of, we're talking about a new normal. Kristen alluded to it a couple of times. How do you plan around that? What does the day-to-day think look like? And that's something we can definitely provide some feedback on and share plans on, because I think that would be really great for our audience today. And then some other pieces and things that people are interested in, how to get new clients and grow your business during the pandemic. We certainly know that home care is now a focus increasingly of transitioning care and making sure folks are able to transition back to the home. So how are you growing your pipeline? So we'll definitely provide webinars and content around doing exactly this. So this is great. And your biggest concerns, by and large, are not having enough caregivers to staff current needs. That's exactly why we brought in this Kristen and Hireology today to talk more about this. This is not the last time that we'll be talking about this. This is an ongoing concern for many agencies, throughout the U.S. Caregivers not being able to work, so folks who are sick, being attentive to some of those needs, and how do you plan so folks stay as safe as possible as well. And then, and this is something we've heard in the previous webinars, PPE and acquiring PPE. We've brought out resources for sourcing PPE, and we'll make sure that we follow up with that, and also have links on our webpage of COVID-related resources that you can use to find ways of sourcing PPP as well. So that's great. So thank you so much, Ashwin, for sharing those poll results. And so let's go ahead and go to the questions now that and one last, I forgot about his poll result. Business updated your career site with specific COVID-19 messaging? Yes. So 54% of you all who responded to the poll have updated your business, your career site with specific COVID-19 messaging. I absolutely suggest, as a vendor to some of you all, and then also as a business owner myself, that you have COVID-19 related messaging. It's something as simple as the fact that you're hiring or recruiting in this time, to maybe some resources for folks as they're looking to use an employer, just looking for resources in general. And Kristen, thank you so much for mentioning that, but I definitely think that we have the majority of you are providing that, but even providing links to resources are really great. I think we had one last poll result if we want to share that too. Ashwin, thanks so much. So does your team have automated scheduling in place to help resources employees accept shifts quickly and efficiently? 57% of you all said yes, and then 42% of you all said no. Can you elaborate, actually, and I think we have a couple questions and we'll go into these, but Kristen, can you elaborate on any resources? You mentioned a couple of those in terms of automating scheduling and talk more about what should people be looking for in those resources as we are approaching this new normal.
Yeah, so I think there are great scheduling resources out there in market, and Hireology actually integrates with ClearCare. So I think someone asked that specific question. And so does your hiring or your ATS applicant tracking system like a Hireology integrate with scheduling softwares like ClearCare that can kind of easily transfer that data of a new hire and make them ready to get on schedule?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So here are some questions, and we're going to go through these fast and furious. Let us know if you have any more questions. Put them, please, in the Q&A. So Coach Stubby asked the question, we need to bring the number of our employees back up to our original number because that was the guideline for our PPP loan. But due to many client services on hold, we don't have much work to go around. How do we recruit when we don't have much work? It's easy to, when we, there's only so much work to offer. So just in the midst of this time, and this sounds also like an opportunity to source and pipeline as well. So can you talk a little bit, Kristen, about sort of the limbo of sourcing applicants and potential caregivers, also and sort of that wait period? Can you offer any insights on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important question, and I think it's not just restricted to healthcare, that a lot of businesses are struggling with, if I don't have the work to go around, why should I be hiring? What should I be doing? And I go back to, hey, we have unemployment at 14.5%. And this is you said the word pipeline, which is music to my ears. Building your pipeline or building your roster, as I talked about, is a really critical time. And if, I think in your space, if you need to put them on payroll or kind of do it there, be really honest about here's what the workload is going to look like and here's what it's going to be. But really think about, hey, now is a great time to look at your career site. Now is a great time to look at this job description. Now is a really good time to maybe pique the interest of people outside of your traditional pool of talent to be interested in that, so that when the work does come back or you do have the demand, you're ready with a pipeline or a roster of people who are ready to go and be on staff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And so here's some other questions, Kristen, that we are getting. So how are agencies addressing the fact that people can make more on unemployment than if they were working because of the government $600 per week bonus payment? At least in New York State, this is true. This actually came up as a topic of concern just in terms of the systemic back and forth and what wasn't accounted for in unemployment versus you know, having folks, you know, ready to work and folks, you know, eagerly coming back to work versus taking unemployment benefits. And that came from an anonymous attendee. Do you have any thoughts on that, Kristen? And I may dovetail some thoughts of my own on that.
Yeah, so I think, honestly, this was an article in the journal this morning that we have, you know, 22 million people who filed for unemployment and would rather do that. And it's not like the number of jobs that are open have really drastically fallen that much, but we're not seeing applicant volume increase. And so as employers, you're probably struggling with, hey, how do I get people to look at me as a more valuable option than collecting unemployment and being at home? And sound like a broken record potentially, it really gets down to that value proposition. And so if you look at, hey, what is the benefit of them staying home and collecting unemployment? What is more confidence or safe about that? Why am I waiting and collecting unemployment to see if my former employer is ready to bring me back on? What's positive about that? And so how can you put your employment brand as your culture? How do you put that forward and make sure that everyone knows who you are? And then really think about your job descriptions. Do they know that it's more than just, hey, this is a job I need to take because I'm filing for unemployment? Hey, this is something I want to do in the midst of this crisis. This is a good job for me, and this will set me up for post-COVID, and really kind of leaning into that story. It's really a storytelling exercise about making them choose you over choosing kind of what they're getting from the government. And so it's really a marketing problem. You're just marketing against kind of the unemployment line and the government's paycheck today.
Absolutely. And I think you hit some of those points brilliantly in terms of the macro issues that are happening. And another thing that I'd add in terms of framing, because several folks out there, you know, Jennifer Timmons asked a question that was very similar in terms of how do you make our model more attractive? You know, unemployment is built as, even in the midst of COVID, a very temporary state. We know that that is the nature, and in fact, it ranges from state to state in terms of the ability for state roles to support folks in unemployment. And so, Kristen, as you alluded to, I think this all goes back to talking with folks, you know, whatever they choose for themselves, and reiterating your brand as to why they should choose you, you know, as they're thinking about sort of the next step. This is not a, you know, I think what has been stated and what we're hearing, you know, from policy folks, from political figures, from business leaders, is that this is as drastic and very traumatic as this is a very temporary state. You know, and it's hard to kind of see our way out right now. And so in the midst of that, I think, Kristen, you alluded to this beautifully, is thinking ahead and getting ahead of what is very much a temporary state of being, because, you know, unemployment won't last forever, and we know that folks will have to get back to work, and we hope to get back to work. So getting ahead of that is everything. But yeah, I think you framed that really beautifully. Anything else to share on that point, Kristen?
Yeah, you kind of alluded to, and I think, Jennifer, you asked a great question. Our CEO actually wrote a book a few years ago called The Best Team Wins, and in it he references a study about pay is actually not one of the top 5 drivers in why people choose a career path or, you know, choose a job. It's actually not a mitigating factor in the top 5 things. It's really about kind of safety, and safety being both in that they have confidence and that they will have a position, and that there is control over that. And then additionally, that they understand what their job is and there's a career path. I think this uncertainty, especially right now, is where people will really get worried. And so why unemployment looks attractive to people is it's a certain thing. It's a certain paycheck. I know that for now, to your point, Helen, that I will have this position and the government will be, you know, supporting me, but who knows how long this will last? And I think we all have seen the studies pre-COVID that healthcare and the demand for this kind of work is only going to increase over the next 10 years. And that the shortage of talent we have in these markets is only going to be bad, regardless of where we were with unemployment. And so I think really leaning into the future and what people's future looks like and what their future career path can look like, and that this will be a paycheck they can count on in the future, is something that I would really make sure that as hospitality and retail workers are out there who don't know when hotels will open and they don't know when they can go back, this may be a new, a career shift they should look at and start looking into so that they can kind of prepare to join you and join your company.
Absolutely. And the time that we have left, we're getting a couple flavors of questions. So I'll call out folks knowing that there are other folks who have very similar questions. But what are the other types of integrations that you all have, right? We talk about the need to have very seamless experiences in order to make processes go faster. We pride ourselves on, averaging around a 60% reduction in that onboarding time at CareAcademy. Can you talk more about what is the integration or the ecosystem with other parts of the applicant tracking tool? I know this is much more technical, but several folks have asked, does it connect with Indeed or ClearCare, some of those other features like Chanel Williams asked?
Yeah, I think, Hireology's point of view is let us be the platform that can help easily manage this and reach out to candidates, and then we'll partner with different things throughout that process. So we partner with countless job boards, whether it be we're launching something with Facebook to take advantage of their 2.5 billion users. We work with Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Google for Jobs. So on the front end, we help you kind of post those positions to as many networks as we can to get your word out there. And then kind of looking throughout the process is we work with best-in-class providers on skill surveys and managing that hard skills testing, running the background checks for you so you can order them through our system and make sure that that process is managed and it's managed through our system. And then scheduling, ClearCare is one of our partners. We have a couple other in the healthcare space that we work with, AlayaCare, Matrix Care, and then also payroll. How do you make sure these things are transferred appropriately into payroll systems? ADP, we have a payroll solution through our partner NetChecks. We really make sure that that information is passed over seamlessly so that you don't have to do that manual effort. And then finally, a big part of our platform that I think is really important for this space is we have an onboarding solution. So, hey, you hired someone, how do you make sure that, they're being onboarded the right way and that we're collecting the right information to get them ready to go on your staff. So I think every kind of step in the hiring process I talked about, we have partners who are best in class there, and we help manage it there, manage it accordingly. And then we're always, if you go to hireology.com/integrate, we're always looking for new partners too. So if there are, people that agencies are looking to partner with and looking to have ATSs plug into, Hireology is always exploring it, and which is why we're really excited to be talking to CareAcademy ourselves.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And then, so for folks of you who joined us maybe a little later, yes, we will be recording this and making this available. So the other question, is really in terms of process. Are there tools in terms of virtual hiring? You mentioned Zoom and FaceTime earlier, Kristen, but several folks had asked, are there other maybe other tools that you all think with that would allow and enable virtual hiring?
Yeah, I mean, I think we run our communication platform like email and text through Hireology's platform. And then we are a Zoom loyalist company ourselves. And so we use Zoom for all video conversations, whether it be internal meetings, interviews, or even kind of webinars like this. Even pre-COVID, when we had people who were looking to move to Chicago, I was running interviews on Zoom. And so I think any video platform that you use, as long as you make sure you provide instructions to the interviewee, will help you with that kind of virtual hiring. I think, not to get too anecdotal here, but I think even my parents are getting good at Zoom. So I think anyone can kind of use this in the interview process now.
Fantastic. So just in the time we have left, we know at the very top, and David, you asked a question regarding just how many folks are, home care workers have contracted COVID. We'll keep that question in mind, just in terms of making maybe some of that data available and it may be worthwhile doing sort of a healthcare check-in in terms of what we know about the effects of COVID specifically on home care, and check in with partners like Home Care Association of America on an upcoming webinar. But with that said, I want to thank Kristen. Thank you so much. How can folks get in touch with you, and and what would you like to say in terms of last remarks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first, thank you, Helen, for letting us join we're in the business of helping people build best teams, and we're just really happy to help provide any kind of best practices or instruction here. If you want more information, you can reach out to Hireology at info@Hireology. I'm on that inbox, and it's easier than my last name, and so then you guys can reach out to us that way, or go to hireology.com and someone can help you respond there.
Fantastic. And so with that said, Ashley, do we have any event slides, or? There we go. Awesome. So I want to thank everyone for coming onto the webinar today. I really appreciate it, and appreciate your attention and your questions as well. We have on our site our COVID webinar series. If you haven't had a chance to look at the webinars that we've had before this, absolutely have those available to you, as well as our COVID class that is still available. Our next webinar will be May 22nd. So we will send out details regarding the next webinars that we'll have as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Helen.